in child protective services, and they won't give them back to their loving families because they're making money.
This is a legal system that you're going into. And if you don't know the rules, you will be chewed up and spit out.
If I could say anything to a mother who just got their children detained, you're in a crisis. Yeah. Life feels like it's over. The most important thing is regaining custody of your children.
The child welfare system at its core is designed to protect children who need protection, okay? And that's key, is who need protection.
So social workers, out of fear, will remove more children rather than only remove those children that truly need to be removed.
It's okay. It's okay.
This isn't someone stole your car. Someone broke into your house. This is someone took your child, your flesh and blood.
It doesn't say on this order that it was not proven. It says untrue. True. I immediately knew that, okay, well, this ain't over.
Were there signs there? Were there no signs? Did I miss them? Did I catch them? At this point, I honestly don't know.
Families only get a finite amount of time to reunify.
I came into this field to help families, not destroy them.
The difference between the criminal system and the child welfare system is substantial. You have more rights as a criminal than you do as a parent.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to CPS Current Events. I'm your host, Amanda Cisco, and I'm joined by my guest today, Angela. How are you today?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing all right, hanging in there. My daughter's 5th birthday was yesterday, and this is the 2nd birthday in a row that I've missed. It's been almost a year to date since I've had any contact with my kids, so it's kind of difficult, but I'm still here. I'm still fighting. So tell me about yourself, Angela. What do you do?
Well, I'm in between jobs right now, but I'm training to be a special education teacher.
Oh, that's really lovely.
Yeah, well, for the motivation for it is because my oldest is autistic. So I was like, hey, I need to better understand her. So I'm just like, well, why not be a teacher? Why not go to school for it? And I'm learning so much. I'm pretty much a sophomore in school. It's online. It is kind of a little difficult to understand, but you know, they are my motivation to keep going. And
Amen.
Yeah, yes.
That's really amazing that you're doing that. I actually had a similar experience a little while ago when I first started school. I started in early childhood development, which was amazing. But then I discovered law. Well, I had to drop out of school because, you know, the relationship that I was in was so abusive with my kid's dad. I just couldn't sustain my education. And and things just started snowballing with the CPS cases. And I discovered, you know, that there is a passion in law for me. And I'm pursuing that now. Having a little bit of a hard time this semester for sure. So tell me, Angela, how did CPS become a part of your life?
Well, I was originally in a domestic violence relationship with my ex, and of course that plays a very big part. And it just kind of snowballed, and they gave the kids back last year, but then an incident happened, and I actually didn't make the best decision, and it cost me them again, and I'm betting to reunify. And then I got pregnant with my current partner, and they're trying to say a lot of stuff that's not true, and it's hard.
I can relate. Was the not best decision going back to him, or?
No, the best decision is that, as they put it, I didn't give proper medical care. So pretty much what happened is that she accidentally got burned in the bathtub, and her brother had turned on the hot water, and the hot water heater wasn't set to a good level. We discovered that, and it wasn't my house. It was Black Meadow, my dad's house, so we don't visit often. So when I was giving the kids a bath, he turned on the hot water and it burned her. And at the time, because I did have some, I guess, experience with burns, I was like, oh, I'm going to put cool water on it. And it didn't look as bad as it did until a few days later. And I was like, okay, so I need to go and take her. And then they charged me with medical negligence. Yeah.
It sounds like a really unfortunate accident, which accidents do happen with parents all the time. I'm really sorry about that. So what happened? So what happened after that?
Well, I guess because I have because two of my kids have the same father. So they went to go see their father, and he's the type of person to hold grudges because I left him and I have a restraining order against him. And he exasperated the entire situation, saying, oh, she's abusing them. Her story doesn't add up. Okay, well, you weren't there. If you were there, then,
Right.
I don't know how that would have worked. But what ended up happening is his mother had called him and he made a referral to that. I mean, he wasn't even at the visit. He's supposed to be having visits and he's not present at the visit, but his mother is. So I'm just like, the visits are for the parents, not for the grandparents. But okay, I'm a little confused here. And so his mother is also a mandated reporter and knew about all the abuse and didn't do anything about it.
So wait. So what does his mom do that she's a mandated reporter?
She works for the Children's Bureau.
The Children's what?
The Children's Bureau as
Children's Bureau. Okay.
She works specifically with DCSF as a child's therapist, specifically for children who are in DCSF cases. So that's why I'm just like, your child's an abuser, your child does all this stuff to me and the kids, and yet you don't report it, but yet you want to go and report to him and then exasperate the entire situation that I myself am an abuser.
That sounds like a huge conflict of interest, if you ask.
It is, and the courts don't do anything about it.
Of course they don't.
And nor does my social worker. And I brought up multiple times my concerns about the abuse, and I've even brought up an incident that had occurred when my oldest was 3 months old. He did stuff to her, and I keep bringing it up, and she's not even looking into it. And yes, it has been years, and he did tell me that he would pretty much end my life if I reported him. So I was afraid to do that when we were together.
That sounds so familiar. I remember when I was in that situation, and I really was in that moment afraid for my life. I really was. So he has been to prison 3 times on felony charges for assault, which the court is sweeping under the rug.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, but it got to the point where I was like, you know what? I love my kids. You're a deadbeat piece of garbage. Mm-hmm. And I finally remember the day that I fought back, and oh boy, did I pay for it. But even though I never called the cops and I ended up in the hospital, the detectives at that point were like, okay, Miss Cisco, you've been here like several times now. Your stories are not adding up. This is definitely serious abuse. And they came. It was really bad. Like I've got like a scar right here. I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah.
It's pretty. So I had 6 stitches in my eye. I woke up in a puddle of blood because I asked him for help with my newborn son. I was working a night shift, and my little middle had gotten sick, and I was like, hey, I need help feeding him. Like, help me with him. I'm exhausted.
Yep.
And instead of helping me, and he's MMA trained, he like elbowed me in my face. I collapsed to the floor holding my son. and I woke up and my son wasn't in my arms. I was in a pool of blood. He had blood all over his shirt, and he was just like making a scene, making it seem like it was my fault. So I completely understand where you're coming from.
They
He
blame
also
you.
assaulted my youngest daughter, but unfortunately the case got turned around on me, and they're accusing me of hurting my own child, even though I took her to the hospital immediately. I took all my evidence to the special crimes detectives. Nobody helped me. They would do nothing. Nothing. Lucky for me, I own a modest cleaning business outside of being a realtor and a law student. And one of my clients who had taken a break because of COVID, I started cleaning for again today. And she is a sexual assault nurse. Well, she's a registered sexual assault nurse, but right now she travels all over the country designing operating rooms and selling medical products. So she makes big money. She knows a lot of people. She gave me the number to the director of Health and Human Services, but it's not in the city that I live in. Hopefully this person can direct me to somebody who can help. And also, she is willing to testify. She gave me the number to an attorney that is basically like a brother to her. What state are you in, Angela, by the way?
California.
Okay. I do have some resources for you. I will pull them up if I can. Gosh, they're on my phone, but I'm using my phone. But yeah, so I got the number to the director of human services. I got the number to a civil rights attorney who is like a brother to her. And she's also now willing to testify as an expert witness in court, because I showed her, like, I airdropped her all the evidence, because she was like, how are your kids? And I was like, girl, you wouldn't believe. And I just kind of like started telling my story. And like, I showed her this, and I was like, dude, I'm just trying to stay alive, honestly. And she was like, I don't blame you. So, she was able to tell me, like, yeah, you have some internal bleeding, but it should be okay. Just like keep circulating it, make sure it doesn't clot, and you won't die. Because if you clot, you're gonna die, like that.
Yes. Yeah. I've actually I used to have my nose pierced, and with my current partner, he doesn't believe in domestic violence or anything. He was actually in a domestic violence relationship with his ex. So
women can be abusive too, everybody.
Yes.
Women can be abusive.
Yes. What ended up happening is he accidentally elbowed me, and he started crying because he felt really bad. But what actually ended up happening is that I passed this huge blood clot. Because if he didn't elbow me in the face, we would have known that there was this huge blood clot that was leading to my brain.
Wait, was from the elbow incident?
Yeah, from him elbowing me in the face, an accident. And, he felt super bad, and I was actually pregnant with our child when it happened. And Noah was like, oh, so you just saved my life and her life. That's great, thanks.
Oh, gosh. Well, that's good. So, yeah, not to digress and talk too much about myself. I was going to share the story about, this injury in another show, but I decided not to. But yeah, so tell me, once they charged you with medical neglect, tell me about the case. How did that start rolling?
Well, it started kind of like, I guess, like snowballing, to where they're like, okay, well, you have to do all these classes. And then they told me that I was like, okay, I can do all these classes. That's fine, because I was doing them for my previous case regardless. And I told them that, even if I have you guys out of my life, which that's the point, that I'm going to continue to do all those classes because, it's always good to learn more stuff. And they wanted me to go and do classes for developmentally delayed children because of my oldest being autistic. And then they wanted me to continue to do mental health. And then they're like, oh, you're doing so well. And then all of a sudden they want to go and state, hey, no, actually, we have to terminate reunification. I was like,
why? Why?
They want to state
it's an autistic child, and they're going to get so much more money being a special needs child, adopting him out. This is so I had a guest my last show. And he was like, he walked in there and he was like, listen, I know what you guys are doing. It's not going to work here. I know exactly what is going on.
Mm-hmm.
And they tightened up. Oh, gosh. Sometimes you have to get aggressive, but I got aggressive recently. And now the retaliation is all of them refusing to communicate with me at all whatsoever.
Yep. Yeah. I've asked for CFT meetings. We were supposed to have a CFT meeting before they detain the baby. And that's a different issue too, which is ridiculous. They're piggybacking on both cases because my partner has a case too with his ex. His ex is beating on him, so he wants his daughter to be adopted out to his grandparents so she has a better life, which is understandable. But in order to do that, he needed to sign over his rights to his grandparents, which is, I understand that part. But we're looking at the fact that his ex is really psycho and his ex is violent and my ex and his ex are together, which is, it's, yeah. I'm like, oh, so you're just going to beat on each other pretty much. Go ahead. That's interesting.
The kids
yeah.
do not need to be in that environment
No, they
at
don't.
all. And they can actually be taken away very quickly because of a domestically violent situation.
Mm-hmm. And the ironic part is we've all known each other since high school, and only my partner and I have changed. Those two have been abusive since high school, and I thought he was gonna stupidly change when he became an adult and a father. It's like, no, let me just go and beat on you and beat on your own children, and regardless. So anyways, with the case, they state all the stuff like, oh, these burns look really bad. I was like, I understand they look really bad, but then my question is, why weren't they court ordering CPR classes or first aid classes or anything like that? So I got smart and I started taking CPR and first aid classes, and I have all of that certified now. Mm-hmm. It's online, but I'm getting it done in person as well. But I have those certificates. I have not only one, but I have 17 different certificates from RFA approved classes, which are classes you need to take to be a foster parent.
17? Wow.
And then watch them state, oh, you can't have your kids because of this. Okay, no. You tell me I can't have my kids because you want to state that my partner's not doing his mental health. Okay, so we got that taken care of. Oh, he's not doing his medication. He doesn't need to be on medication. According to mental health, he's stable. And further, they wanted to say, oh, because he smokes marijuana. Okay, first off, he has a medical card. And different state laws require different state things. So as long as you have a medical condition, okay, you want to go and tell me that I can't have my kids because I have a pole in my leg because of a car accident too? That wasn't my fault. I was a passenger. So yeah, I've not made the best decision with men. I've not made the best relationships or the best decision with relationships. But I'm finally in a healthy relationship. I'm not around any domestic violence or anything else. I'm doing all my classes. I'm in compliance. I'm going above and beyond. And then you tell me, oh, termination of reunification. My attorney is not having any of it.
So do you have a court-appointed attorney or a private attorney?
She is technically a criminal/private attorney. She is her office, I think, is in Valencia. And she is not as she puts her business, she's one of the first Black-owned all-women attorney offices in the state of California. She's a really good criminal attorney, yes. And with our youngest, which is the baby, she was detained the day I was released from the hospital from a C-section because of how she was laying, and because of my accident, a large portion of my pelvis was damaged. So I could not physically push her out because it would either cause detriment to me and her, or just her, because I had put her needs before my own to make sure she survived.
Of course.
So with it being a planned C-section, they told me that I couldn't eat or drink anything. I think it was within 11 hours. So
Isn't that the worst when you're in the hospital and you're just so hungry and thirsty? You're like, please give me something. They're like, no, you can't eat. And you're like,
They couldn't even give me ice strips. They're like, we can give you an IV. I was like, I will take the IV.
Something in my IV, for goodness sake.
Can you put a cheeseburger in my IV, please?
I know, right? I heard this, so I digress really quick. I heard this heartbreaking story when I was watching this documentary called Food Inc. And it's really good on Netflix if you ever come across it. But there was this child who caught E. coli, like one of the deadly E. coli viruses. He was 5 years old from bad meat from this one restaurant. And, you know, the mom fought and she fought and she fought, you know, went all the way to the Supreme Court to get like at least an apology or something from the company who knew that their meat was tainted, and they sold it anyway. And it cost her son his life. And she was telling, you know, the director, like when she was being recorded, she was like, it's one of the most heartbreaking things a parent can go through. Like, he was sitting there for days just begging for water, and he couldn't even have water. They had to give him a wet sponge. That's the most that they could do. And she said he was so thirsty that he was eating the sponge. He would literally bite the sponge and swallow it. That's how thirsty he was up until the day he died. How horrible is that? And our government did not even care enough to hold that meat industry, that company, accountable. She couldn't even get a statement, an apology, nothing. Her son starved to death in the hospital before the virus took his life. And you know, I was talking to my client today. I'm not going to say her name. I was talking to my client today, and she knows like a lot of big players. You know, she's like, her house is so cool. She has like all this cool eclectic furniture, like everything from her rugs, her chairs, like the paintings on her wall. Everything is so stupid expensive. Like, it's so cool. But yeah, and we knew each other from before, so we really hit it off today when I finally saw her after like 2.5 years. And I was filling her in, and she was like, oh my gosh, like, let me do this, let me do that. I'm like, thank you, Lord. But, you know, she even said, our government, she was like, look at our government. It is falling apart, not just in a political level, at a constitutional, at a federal level. Like, our government is completely imploding. It is collapsing. It's falling apart. And she said something that I truly agree with. We, the people, have forgotten that we hold the power. We, the people, hold the power. But we have been so deeply oppressed that we have forgotten how much power we have.
Yep.
But we only have strength in numbers. So the only way to regain our power is for each and every one of us to remember that together we share the power. And united, we have to stand. United, we must stand.
Yes.
So keep telling us about your case.
Yes. And then when our daughter was detained, as I said previously, with the C-section, I couldn't eat anything. So last time I ate was on the Sunday before. And I have fetal alcohol syndrome myself because, I mean, I'm adopted. So my biological mother did heroin, meth, and whatnot. I mean, she shot up the 2 hours before she had me. So she knew I was going to be taken regardless. Yeah. So I came out with withdrawals, and I stopped breathing a few times, and they had to keep bringing me back. And I was a premature baby. Yeah.
Do you remember any of that?
No, I mean, I was a baby, so.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, just from when I was reading the reports. So my question is, why would I do any alcohol or drugs or anything? I don't even take Tylenol because I'm worried that it's going to be in my system when they drug test me. Why would I go and do that to my own flesh and blood?
Right.
And then they try to state that there was ethanol in my system. Well,
AKA alcohol.
Well, here's the thing. It was less than 3%. Or it was 0.000003.
That literally could have been from anything.
Which is the normal amount.
That's a trace amount. That's a trace amount of alcohol. You could have had that from putting on hand sanitizer.
Because your body makes up for extra calories, and they were pretty much making up for the calories that I was lacking that day. That's why it was in my system.
So they used alcohol? Is this on your medical records?
It's in there. It says negative.
So, again, and again, and again, I'm interviewing somebody who has the medical documentation from a doctor in a hospital clearly stating no wrongdoing has been done. And they took your kid anyway.
Without a warrant, by the way.
Okay. So I pulled up a story. I sent it to our producer, Grace, that I would like to share. And I think it's really pertinent to what we're talking about right now. So I'm going to leave it up to you. Do you want me to share it now, or do you want me to wait until the end of your story?
Whatever you want to do, whatever you think is best to do.
Go ahead and keep telling us your story.
So I've always had mental health problems, but that's because of life of trauma, like depression, PTSD.
Right.
I had my own problems when I was a young kid. Things happened to me, specific things happened that may or may not have reflected upon that. But I've been in therapy since 2019 to deal with those problems.
Right.
But directly, it was May 2019 before any of the case started. The case started in December of 2019. And then they try to state that I'm not doing my mental health. According to the other reports for our newborn, they stated that I was not doing my mental health. They're unsure if I had prenatal care or medication care. Okay. I literally had my medication with me in my bag. And I tried to give it to the social worker. She refused.
Don't do that in the future. Don't do that. Don't do that. They're just going to use anything you give them against you.
Yep.
Obviously.
Yeah. I got a psych eval. It states that I'm stable. It states that I need the medication, why I need the medication, how it's benefiting me, and everything else. And since being away from my domestic violence relationship and since being on the medication, it has been a whole lot better. And then they try to state that because my partner has quote unquote mental health issues, even though he's stable and he got an evaluation that literally states he's stable. We just need to go and get the paperwork, which will be sometime this week. But it's the fact that they're stating that he was not stable when he is, that he's a drug addict when he's not, and that comes from his ex. Because his ex is a drug addict, and so is my ex. And yet, I'm the one being drug tested, and he's the one being drug tested too.
My ex is a drug addict. I'm an ex drug addict. I was 17 when he introduced me to XYZ, and it was horrible. And when I became pregnant with my oldest, I got out of Dodge. I got into school, and things were great until he reeled me back in again with his speech of, oh, I'm different. I'm changed. I want to make this work. You know, and of course, like when you're in an abusive relationship, and this is what the courts really need to understand, which I know they do. They just choose to ignore. They need to understand that when you're being abused, there is a level of brainwashing that unless you've experienced it or you're a professional who understands how to recognize it, you have no idea like how deeply they have control over you. I remember there was a point in my life where I wanted nothing more than his approval. Anything I did, anything I said, anything I thought, it ran through this filter of, oh, well, what would he do? What would he want me to do? What is he going to think about this? Like everything went through a filter of, what would he think?
Yes, people pleasing.
Yes, and you know, but he had such a deep level of control, and he knew that. And it starts off subtle. They start by grooming you. They'll buy you some things, they'll take you places, they'll show you their best self, and then you fall for them. Things will be great for a little while. Oh, look at all my friends. Oh, let's go shopping. Oh, let me help you with this. And then slowly it starts with things like, when you're alone, just low key comments that makes you think twice about yourself. Like that self-consciousness. Like he'll say things to make you wonder, oh, am I really this? Am I really that? Why am I not good? Am I really good enough?
Yes.
And then it graduates to comments in public in front of other people. So now you're under this pressure. Not only in privacy are you on your guard, wondering if you're good enough, then it graduates to, oh my gosh, I must act a certain way. I have to say these certain things. I have to dress a certain way. I have to be a certain person, to be okay and good enough for him and all of his friends. Then it graduates to, in private, he's putting his hands on you. Then after that, it graduates to, oh, he's putting his hands on you in public in front of his friends. And he gives his friends a reason why it was okay for him to put his hands on you. And they believe it. So now you have this entire population of people, right? That's thinking this certain thing. They have this certain idea about you based on the picture that your abuser painted. And here you are, right? Over here. Here you are up against this whole world that you were introduced to, that you thought that you were a part of. Now you're like an alien to this world of people that you're trying to prove yourself to. And it's so unhealthy. You feel helpless. And then in the meantime, what your abusers will do is they will isolate you from your family, from your friends. Your family and friends get so tired of telling you, get away from him. You have to leave him. But it's like being in an abusive relationship is like being addicted to a drug. You can't get away. You can't get away. They have completely mentally fucked you. They own your mind.
Yes.
It's not that simple. You don't just get up and walk away. And if you do, expect retaliation. Expect there to be consequences. You have to lose everything. Most of the time, when a person leaves an abusive relationship, they lose everything. And when I say everything, I mean everything. You have to start from square one. You have no car. You have no house. You have no belongings, probably no clothes. Like, that's how it is. You have what you can fit into a bag and get away in the middle of the night, and that's it.
Yep.
That's had it happen to me a couple of times now.
Yep.
Because
I know exactly.
Yeah. And he stole my children. He stole my kids. So I completely understand what you're going through. The reason I'm, giving so much information in my side of the story so that our viewers can understand, especially people who haven't been in an abusive relationship, they need to understand how serious it really is.
Yes.
It's not just a matter of willpower or choice.
Yeah, it's the whole concept. I used to think, oh, I can leave whenever I want. Oh, I'm going to leave this day. Oh, I plan to leave this day.
Yep.
And yeah, I did allow him to do a lot of things to me and to the children that literally almost cost them their lives. And
Yes.
In regards to the previous story you were sharing about the E. coli, yeah, I know how it is to lose a child. Like, I've literally lost a child myself. I've lost actually several. And one of them was because of him. And I feel bad every day. And I kept trying to tell DCSF about that. And they won't listen. It's like, okay, cool. They're like, well, do you have proof? And I show them proof. And then it's like, oh, let's just turn a blind eye. I'm like, okay, cool. So I kept telling my social worker, I was like, hey, how would you feel if your kids were taken? Let's take away your kids. Let's go and investigate you. And as soon as I told her that I'm going to start recording her and start investigating her, she started shutting up and not answering my calls. And every single time I tried asking for a CFT meeting for the benefit of my child, she kept telling me, oh, well, we're going to have it this day. Let's schedule this day. And I told her these are the specific people that I want in it. She shut up about it. And I was like, and I have all the proof. Like, I have literally just had to go and make a referral to the hotline because our middle child is the same one that got burned too. The foster home she's placed in, I've seen bruises on her, and they're hand grasp on. They're like this big, or yeah, they're like that big, and they look like abuse. My monitor looked at it. She called her supervisor, and supervisor told her, call the hotline immediately. Do not let that child leave until we investigate it. We did, and I had caught COVID in that October, and I did not see her for a while. I don't know if her dad had seen her, but according to the reports, he's not even having consistent visits. He sees them like once or twice a month. I see them every single week like clockwork. They know me more. They love me more because they know me, because I'm present and I'm not a danger. He is.
Be careful of making it a competition. And I'm telling you this from experience. I'm not criticizing you, but just from my own experiences, try to be careful of that, especially when you're around your kids. Try never, ever to compare yourself to the other parent. You know, let them figure that out on their own.
Yes.
It's really important. They need to figure that out on their own, because if you try to make them believe a certain thing, they could end up resenting you in the future for not giving them the opportunity to find out for themselves. Yes. And I know it's very scary. It is very scary. I know this. It is a huge leap of faith. It is not easy, but you have to let your kids figure that out on their own, that the other parent will show their true colors. And they will. They will. You focus on being the best mother to your kids that you can be. And from what I've heard, you're an amazing mom. You're taking the strides to get the education, to gain the knowledge that you need to care for your special needs child. That is so commemorable. That is so amazing that you're doing that. So many parents just don't care, but you do. You do. So I believe, and take my advice with a grain of salt, I believe the best thing you can do is just shut him out.
Yep.
And focus on being you as a mom to your kids. And they will appreciate that. You know, children are like sponges. We all know this. They're like sponges. They soak up everything. And they will see if he is abusive, if he is not a good parent to those kids, even if social services decides to ignore that, as they usually do, the kids will figure that out on their own.
Yes.
And they will see that you have always been there, and they will appreciate you for not saying anything about it.
Yep. I mean, when I have my visits with all my kids, because like we have 4, so
yeah,
that's a lot.
I have 3 myself, and I'm one of 10. So
one of 20-ish from what I discovered. I
don't know. Wait. So my parents were like always married in the same house. Like I was raised with like 9 other siblings. What about you? 20?
Well, because I'm adopted, so I have 2 technically adopted. I mean, because I was adopted by my mom, who is actually the mother of my biological father. So technically, my biological father became my adopted brother. My biological uncle became my adopted brother too. Yeah.
You lost me. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, but my biological father had 2 other kids with another woman, and then my biological mother had the rest. So there's 3 of us that have the same parents, and then there's 3, 4, 5, and then just the rest are from my mom's side. And I'm just like, do I still have siblings? I'm still discovering how many I have. I was like, I have another sibling? Okay, cool. This is interesting.
It sounds really interesting. Okay, yeah. So I want to save about 5 minutes or so to read this article at the end of the show. We've got about 20 minutes left. So let's get, and I'm sorry, I am sidetracking you like every turn. Okay, so tell me about the case where we left off.
Yes. So they keep stating that I have to go and do drug testing, etc., because of what was in my system. Okay, every single test has come back. Every single test has come back negative, like I knew it would. And yet they're still trying to get me to do rehab and alcohol classes with aftercare. And my attorney's like, there's no point in doing that. She's negative. And they're like, oh, she has to do another parenting class. Okay, cool. I'm already in another parenting class. Boom, I already take the initiative. I'm like, what else are you gonna court order? I was like, okay, I'm asking for a specific
whatever
thing.
Services they can throw out there that's gonna make them more money, really, is what they're gonna recommend.
Yeah, but
they want you to go to rehab because it's a paycheck for them.
Yeah. My attorney is literally just gonna throw the majority of things out. I was like, okay, so baby's coming home because we have court on Thursday. I was like, okay, so is baby coming home then? Because there's no reason to keep the baby.
Right.
Like, what are you gonna keep saying oh, sorry, dad can't be around? Okay, well, here's the thing. He has a right to that child. And 2, you state that no reunification for him, yet it states the DI's recommendation is reunification for both of us.
Yeah, so tell me about that. You said that they terminated reunification. Why?
Because she's being okay, so for mine, they try to state that it's because, oh, he's around. Okay, well, we're showing proof that he's stable and all that, and yet you tell me, oh, he can't be around. Okay, but you're not giving a clear reason why, just like you weren't giving a clear reason why she was detained. They kept stating, oh, it's because of these, and then I find out that it's failure to protect. How can that be failure to protect when I'm literally still in the hospital? Exactly. So it states no reunification for the other 3 or to terminate reunification, but then you state it's reunification for the newborn. And then no reunification for her dad, but yet the other social worker is recommending reunification for him. So that part doesn't make sense at all. So they're just contradicting everything. And what they further contradicted the other report by stating, oh, the mother's not in compliance, the mother's not doing her mental health, she didn't have any prenatal care, when I literally show them, those cards you get for the doctor's office? I literally have those, and I have the dates on all of them.
Yes. You saved your evidence. Yes. I have the same thing. Yes. Make a spreadsheet. Make an Excel spreadsheet of every event, everything you can prove, whether it's by text message, doctor's cards, fucking like legal notes, anything. It doesn't matter. Make an Excel spreadsheet by date of everything chronologically that has transpired on this case. I'm telling you. Do it.
And I got my records from when I had my first kid. Because they try to state all of them have fetal alcohol syndrome. Okay, well, here's the thing. Those little tests that they do, they're not just testing their blood for random things. They're testing the blood for alcohol and drugs. I know how it works.
And they don't tell you about it either. They do it in secret, which is another violation of your rights.
Of HIPAA, yeah.
They can't do that. Yes.
But here's the thing. If any of them have fetal alcohol syndrome, they would have been taken at birth.
Yes, they would have.
And then all of a sudden,
there are incentives for social workers to take a child in the hospital. That's what they shoot for. Guys, I hate to say this to all of our viewers, but when you deliver a child in the hospital, you are instantly subjecting yourself to a CPS farming ground. That is exactly what it is. They farm the labor department, the delivery, whatever you call it. It's been a long time since I was in nursing school, but the labor and delivery department is a farming ground for CPS to snatch your children. They secretly test you for drugs and alcohol. They do. They absolutely do. And what's even worse is that if you have a case and you know that your kid is going to be taken by a CPS worker when you deliver, because they're just waiting on it. They're just waiting on it, counting down the clock, right? So say you go to a different state and deliver. They put your name into a national database. I think it's called, it's not OSHA. It's called Oasis. OASIS. You know about it. You know about it. Yep. So they put your name into Oasis, and you will automatically be red flagged, and your kid will instantly be taken because you went to another state to be safe from having your kid taken. Say that you deliver at home with a midwife. They're going to charge you with medical neglect and take your kid, even though, I'm sorry, for how many thousands of years have we been squatting in fields, pushing out babies with no doctor?
Exactly.
I'm sorry. Anyway, it's my 2 cents. So where is your case right now, Angela?
The county, or in regards to where it's at?
Say it all.
Well, it's in Los Angeles County.
Oh, not where, but at what point is your case right now?
They state no reunification or to terminate reunification, but then, obviously we're going to fight that. We're going to appeal it. We're going to contest it.
Are you going to file a 388 petition?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm filing that. It's already in the process.
Great.
I'm not backing down. These are my flesh and blood.
Have you considered at least a consultation with Attorney Vincent Davis?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have Georgette Truan's information? She's his legal assistant, and she also has 3 of her own shows.
I think that's Miss
There
D.
are many packages that Vincent does. Just do the consultation with him if you want, which I highly recommend. He can speak to your attorney also and say, and just, he can advise your attorney, because this is his life's purpose. This is what he does, So he can help guide your attorney on exactly what he needs to do to win your case.
Okay.
You're in a crisis. You have to get your kids back.
Yep. All 4 of them, no matter what. Yeah, I will get Miss D's information from you, and I will go from there.
Okay.
Anything and everything that will help.
Fantastic. I'll have Grace, I know you're listening. So Grace, send Georgette's information to Miss Angela so that she can get in touch with Mr. Davis. I highly, highly recommend a consultation. So just, I will ask him to look at the video so he has a background of the case, so you don't have to take up that time in the consultation. And yeah, just talk to him, give him all your evidence. Just remember, when you speak with him, stick to the facts. The facts, 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 facts. Facts win a case.
Yes, they do.
Cases rely on facts. A lot of people waste their time focusing on, oh, she did this and he or she said that, and oh, I feel this and I feel that. That's irrelevant. It's not relevant to the pertinent issues at hand. You have to stick to the facts. So, is there anything else that you would like to share about your case?
That CBS sucks.
Yeah. I concur.
Yes, I think everyone concur that, and that they obviously do need to investigate a lot more than just not just sweeping everything under the rug. Like, as what I was saying about what was happening with my daughter that got burned with the bruises. They closed it. Like, they looked at it for maybe a few minutes and then closed it out. And then when I brought up the fact that the foster mom admitted to my child hitting her head on the floor, and it's hardwood floor, and I asked her, did you take her to the ER for hitting her head? And she said,
didn't have any knowledge of this happening.
No.
Oh.
She told me no. She admitted, I have black and white proof. I have the text message proving she did not take her to the doctor, or she did not take her to the ER or anything. And said, oh, well, the doctor thinks she's autistic. Okay, yeah, it doesn't matter if she's autistic. She still hit her head. She still should have been seen by a doctor, and I requested, and I brought it up to the hotline, and they closed it out. And then because my ex did something to my oldest, and they're not even investigating that at all.
How old was your oldest at the time that this happened? I'm sorry, this is triggering for me. I just started on my new medication, but I'm still It's just really hard for me to hear.
3 months old.
Jesus Christ, 3 months old.
Yeah, you probably know what I'm talking about.
My daughter was 18 months old, for fuck's sake. Okay, so Janelle White says, it's true. I was given drugs by the hospital, then tested. They tried to take my daughter. Janelle, did they succeed? Let us know in the comments.
Yes, because that would be medical negligence on the hospital's part.
Okay, so it's really hard for me not to be triggered. I'm telling you, like, Angela, every case that I hear, it just gets to me more and more because I can't. I'm going to be honest. I am so effing tired of hearing all of these cases. And after you hear enough cases, they all start to sound the same. They all have the same themes, you know? I am so sick of hearing cases, case after case after case, and nothing is being done. Nothing is changing. Nothing is being done about it. People are fighting so hard to change legislation, and these politicians just brush it off like it doesn't exist. Oh, let's talk about taxes and said, I don't give a shit. Tax 50% of my fucking income. I don't care. Stop stealing our kids for money.
Exactly. They're not paychecks. They're flesh and blood.
They are children. They are human souls. They are human souls. And these people are so corrupt. You're going to over-police colored neighborhoods, right? Mm-hmm. I got into a fight with a cop last night. I'm not going to go into that. I called him a fucking sellout before I skateboarded away. I was having a moment. But anyway, save that story for another time. But it blows my mind. It blows my mind. And like Vincent Davis always says, absolute power corrupts. Absolutely. You have these social workers that are making up, fabricating evidence, making up lies. Not only that, not only is it completely fucking false, everything that they're saying, furthermore, the courts themselves are ignoring the fact that he who asserts a claim or demands redress must bear the burden of proof with admissible evidence. Furthermore, you have objections, like we covered on a different show. Counsel, guardian ad litem, city attorneys, your opposing attorneys, they cannot testify. They cannot testify to facts, not in evidence, and they also can't testify to things that they do not have firsthand knowledge of. Period. Furthermore, if you do have evidence, it must be admissible according to the laws of civil procedure and evidence. Yep. There are two separate laws. Excuse me. You have the federal rules of civil procedure, you have the federal rules of evidence, and you also have your jurisdiction, your state's Supreme Court laws for civil procedure and evidence. Two separate things. They must follow those rules. Where, when you remove a child, especially when you have medical documentation showing that you did nothing wrong, you have a doctor clearing you and your child, you have this evidence, and you're going to go to court behind a parent's back, right? Without their knowledge, which is already a violation of their due process of law, and submit what? Your fucking hearsay? And you as a judge is going to sign off on an order that you had no admissible evidence to back in the first place. And I'm sorry, I know, I can see my face getting red. Okay. That is my point exactly. Yep. And these politicians, God bless Saint Nancy Schaefer. I'm going to call her Saint Nancy Schaefer because she's a saint. Okay. She was murdered and her husband framed as a murder-suicide. She was about to blow CPS out of the water and they killed her. Look up Nancy Schaefer, SCHAFFER on YouTube. Look at her report. It's downloadable. Download that report. Bring it to court. This is real information. These are facts. She was a 2-time Georgia State Senator. Okay, Angela, I would like to read an article before we end our show. Is there anything else that you would like to add? I'm so sorry.
Well,
Your
okay.
case has me worked up.
I'm so sorry.
No, don't apologize. We really need to do something. Something has to be done. And we're all fighting, but we need to stand together. Oh. Okay. Sorry. My thing just minimized randomly. Okay, that was weird. Well, all right. So to our story. This is by, ironically, the American Bar Association. Okay. And the title is, and I sent the link to our producer. We're going to post it on the page so that you guys can read it on your own. So the title is Social Services and Constitutional Rights, a Balancing Act by Benjamin R. Picker and Jonathan C. Dunsmore. So it goes as follows. Here, let me sip my coffee. Imagine the following scenario. You get a call from your spouse to come home immediately because a county social service worker and police officer are standing outside of your home, demanding to come inside and speak to your 3-year-old son. You arrive home a short time later and are told that social services received an anonymous report 3 days earlier stating that your son is being abused, and they suspect the abuse is by one of his parents. Social Services has since discovered who made the anonymous report, but refuses to tell you who the person is because such information is confidential. You deny that any abuse has occurred. Okay. The social worker demands entry into the home to interview and take photos of your son. The social worker also states that your son must reside outside of your home with family or friends while the investigation continues. I've been through this personally, guys. This is real. You initially refuse to permit the social worker into your home, and you protest the removal of your son from your home. The social worker then states that if you do not cooperate, he will have no choice but to take your child and place him in foster care while the investigation continues. Based on this threat, you reluctantly agree. Based on this threat, you reluctantly agree. Your sister could care for your son on a temporary basis. The social worker then interviews your child outside of your presence, and your child denies ever being abused. The social worker also inspects and takes photographs of your child's body, but sees no suspicious bruises or injuries. Nonetheless, you are told that your son must stay. Even after that, you're told nonetheless that your son must stay with your sister for a few weeks, perhaps longer, until the investigation is complete. Furthermore, you are advised that you may not have any contact with your son until the investigation is complete because you could taint the investigation. In the period that follows, you are never afforded a hearing before a neutral judge, magistrate, or master. And whenever you call social services to obtain the status of the investigation, you are merely told that they are still investigating. After a month of being separated from your son, you finally decide that you've had enough and you go to an attorney. You want to know if social services actions are legal and if your family's rights have been violated. So the next part, procedural due process under the 14th Amendment. The right to procedural due process is implicated where a constitutionally protected liberty or property interest is concerned. And then they cite legal resources that you will find in the article, which we will post on the page. The crux of procedural due process is the right to notice, like the right of you to be noticed. So the crux of procedural due process is the right to notice and an opportunity to be heard at a meaningful time and in a meaningful matter. And then they give you another legal resource to cite, which are very important for your cases, guys. The U.S. Supreme Court has repeatedly held that parents have a fundamental right. And when I say fundamental right, I want to pause. Okay, so we have unalienable rights and we have fundamental rights. When it comes to the Constitution, a fundamental right is very, very specific. So I will pull that up right now because I don't want to butcher it. So, fundamental right is a group of rights that has been recognized by the United States Supreme Court as requiring a high degree of protection from government encroachment. Encroachment means the government is impeding on your rights, they're getting into your life. They're like too involved, more involved than they should be. So fundamental rights are a group of rights that have been recognized by the Supreme Court as requiring a high degree of protection from government encroachment. Ironically, the right to education is not ruled as a fundamental right, but the right to be a parent is ruled as a fundamental right. So fundamental rights are very high up in the scheme of things. Okay, so we're about to be done. So the United States Supreme Court has repeatedly held, and the Supreme Court is the highest arbiter of the law. They're the ultimate interpreters of what the law is or is not based on how they read the Constitution. So they've repeatedly held that parents have the fundamental right to make decisions as to the companionship, care, custody, and management of their children, which right is a protected liberty interest under the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment. As a result, there can be no doubt that the 14th Amendment is implicated wherever the government seeks to separate a parent from his or her child. And due process principles generally require the right to notice and a hearing before children are separated from their parents. The separation does not have to be carried out with force for due process to be implicated. Instead, duress or coercion will be sufficient, like CPS workers often like to do to you guys. Such as where social services worker threatens to place the children in foster care if the children are not voluntarily placed outside of the home with family or friends. However, where there is a reasonable suspicion to believe that a child is in imminent danger of serious harm, a pre-deprivation hearing is not required. And that is what they often lie to assume that there is. Okay. In such a case, several courts have determined that post-deprivation hearings must be afforded within 72 hours, even if such a hearing has not been requested by the family. Some courts have permitted slightly longer or required slightly shorter periods depending on the circumstances. Let me see. Okay. So rather outrageous, but finding no damages. Okay, so now it talks about cases. Some courts have permitted slightly longer, required slightly shorter periods depending on the circumstances, concluding that 72-hour delay was rather outrageous, but finding no damages, concluding that 65-hour delay was constitutionally permissible, but was near, if not at, the outer limit of permissible delay. Approving a 12-day delay, but nothing that hearing would have occurred earlier if parents did not request additional time to prepare. In any event where a child is seized based on the existence of imminent danger, due process is not negated, but merely delayed. And the maximum permissible delay in providing a post-deprivation hearing should ordinarily be measured in hours and days as opposed to weeks. And of course, this judicial opinion was unpublished, which means it doesn't have as much weight as a published opinion. In the scenario above, there has likely been a violation of parents' procedural due process rights. The child was coercively removed without a pre-deprivation hearing, despite the fact that there was no evidence that the child was in any imminent danger. Even if the child could have been in imminent danger, which is doubtful given the 3-day delay between the anonymous report and the removal of the child was separated from the child's parents for a month without the family being afforded a state-initiated post-deprivation hearing. Such facts could provide ample grounds for bringing a civil rights action under, which is my favorite lawsuit, 42 U.S.C. Section 1983, which is civil rights litigation. Ordinarily, to comport with the Fourth Amendment, consent, a warrant, or a court order, like you were saying before, Angela, or probable cause to believe that serious abuse is occurring is required before a child may be seized by social services. However, some courts have applied the special needs doctrine to child abuse investigations, pursuant to which children may be placed with protective custody based on a lesser standard of reasonableness. In any event, an exception to the probable cause requirement exists where there are exigent circumstances, which refers to situations where real, imminent, and serious consequences could certainly occur where a police officer or social worker to postpone action to get a warrant. Some courts have treated the concept of imminent danger under the Fourth Amendment as identically to the concept of exigent circumstances under the Fourth Amendment, but they're two different clauses, often treated the same. In our scenario above, a court might find that the seizure of the child violated the Fourth Amendment because the social worker did not have a court order or warrant, and there may not have been any exigent circumstances, especially given the 3-day delay between receiving the complaint and acting upon it. So we're almost done. The First Amendment right to familial association. The First Amendment also provides a possible cause of action. A cause of action, guys, is the right to sue. Okay, Janelle White, email me at amanda@vincentwdavis.com. The First Amendment also provides a possible cause of action, aka right to sue. Courts have recognized that the First Amendment protects the fundamental rights to intimate association, which includes the familial association between parents and children. Where government action substantially interferes with fundamental rights, such as the right to family relationships, it is subject to strict scrutiny, which means that the government must have a compelling reason for its actions and its means to achieve its goal, and must be narrowly tailored as possible. Guys, like, this is by the American Bar Association. This is the law. Cite this in your court cases. Although the government certainly has a compelling interest in protecting children who are in danger, the seizure of a child from his or her parents, or the banning of all communication between them, is not always the most narrowly tailored means to achieve its goal. In our fact pattern above, unless social services had a reason to believe the child was in danger, it did not have compelling reason to separate the child from its parents. Moreover, unless separation was the most narrowly tailored means of achieving the goal of protecting the child from abuse, the First Amendment may have been violated also. Okay. Substantive due process under the 14th Amendment. Outside of the child seizure context, substantiative due process can also be used as sort of a catch-all for constitutional violations, and it applies when actions of a government official are so egregious, so outrageous, that it may fairly be said to shock the contemporary conscience. Sorry, I speed read. So whether conduct shocks the conscience depends on the particular facts of the case and the period of time in which the child welfare worker had to contemplate his or her actions. And then it gives more information about cases that you can cite in your trial. Guys, please read this. Read this article that I'm going to post. Oh, thank you. Break Chains. You're a really great viewer. I appreciate you. Okay, so one example of conscience-shocking behavior is where the child welfare workers remove the children from their home and falsely advise the children that their mother had abandoned them. This happens so often. Some courts hold that substantiative due process may not be called upon when a specific constitutional provision, such as the First or Fourth Amendment, protects the right allegedly infringed upon. Nonetheless, there appears to be an independent right to familial integrity under the 14th Amendment, which is limited by the compelling governmental interest in the protection of children, particularly where the children need to be protected from their own parents. However, a state has no interest in protecting the children from their parents unless it has some definite and articulable evidence giving rise to a reasonable suspicion that a child has been abused or is in an imminent danger of abuse. Evidence, guys, not just hearsay. Therefore, if a child is separated from his or her parents based on the insufficient evidence, the family's right to a familial integrity and therefore the right to substantiative due process under the 14th Amendment will have been violated. It appears from the fact pattern that report of abuse was anonymous and that the child welfare workers may not have had any other evidence of abuse. Given the fact that an anonymous tip may justify investigation, but will not provide reasonable grounds for removal of a family member absent independent, articulable criteria of reliability, it appears that the parents' and child's rights under the 14th Amendment right to familial integrity were violated. So, conclusion, guys. While child welfare workers have been important but difficult job of ensuring the safety of children, they're sugarcoating it, guys. They nonetheless must act in accordance with constitutional principles. Child welfare workers and the agencies they work for cannot and should not interfere with the fundamental constitutional right to familial relations and integrity, the right to make decisions as to the companionship, care, custody, and management of one's children, or the right to be free from illegal seizure without being subjected to a civil rights action. Although it is nearly impossible to train social services workers for every possible fact pattern and contingency. In this author's opinion, providing child welfare workers with exhaustive and detailed training is the best way to avoid substantial harm that can arise from the improper interference with youth and family. Okay, so that was the entire article. I will be posting on the page. I am sorry, Angela, that you had to sit here on standby and listen to all that. But I mean, they made it the American Bar Association themselves made it very, very clear. The Supreme Court has ruled on this. They are the highest arbiter of the law. You cannot go above the Supreme Court. If the Supreme Court says you must do this, this, and this, bring it into your case. These bullshit trial judges have no choice but to listen to that.
Mm-hmm.
And that is so weird. My phone minimized again. I swear, you know what? I've got some funny stories. When I first retaliated and stood up for myself on my case, somebody broke into my house, like took like a razor or something, like cleanly cut my screen. And there was even like a handprint and like, you know, that they used to push open the window. My recording device was wiped. My, what was it? I lost like a good bit of evidence. My recording device got wiped. My hard drive, they attempted to wipe, but I had copies of everything with a couple of, you know, different locations in a safe place. And it was crazy. So the police officer that came in, he was like, I wish, like he had his body cam on. He was like, there are so many things that I wish I could tell you, but I can't, you know, because I'm being recorded right now. Okay, so break chains, you can contact me at amanda@vincentwdavis.com. That is my email. So even the police officer said, after saying like, there are so many things I want to tell you, but even before he said that, he was like, you must have pissed somebody off. And then I told him about my case and what I was working on. And he was like, oh, there are so many things that I wish I could tell you, but I can't. And I was like, gotcha. So the Commonwealth broke into my house, probably wiped my device, but I had copies of it everywhere. So really, you didn't lose anything. But the fact that my screen is minimized like 3 times now, that is insane. Anyway. So, Angela, to wrap up your case, where are you right now in court? What are you guys waiting on?
We are waiting on to see if we can actually file that 388, which that's going to be filed regardless.
Right. I was going to say, there's no wait and see, file it.
Yeah, where we're going to go from there.
Okay. Do you have another court date yet?
Yeah, it's on Thursday, actually. It's actually for both cases. It's for my other 3, and then it's for our new warrant.
Okay. Well, God bless you. Best of luck with that. I will send all of our good energy. Just remember to keep in touch with us. We love to have repeat guests. So if you ever want to come back on and share your story, give us an update, we would love to have you.
Okay. And hopefully you'll have my little babies with me. It'll just be like, thing 1, thing 2, thing 3, thing 4.
Yes. Amen. That would be wonderful.
Yeah.
So if your kids were listening right now, what would you want them to know?
That there is hope, that you have a voice, be loud, be proud, pretty much that. Just, you know, get connected to the resources like Vincent Davis and your state legislators, and start honestly reading petitions and start reading on cases that are successful.
Yes.
And pretty much know your rights and know your petitions and know which ones you can and cannot file. And
I will do a class on Thursday on how to do legal research.
Good.
So
I will definitely
anybody
be
who
there
wants
too.
to learn, tune in on Thursday.
Okay.
Now, any parent who is going through a case similar to yours, what is your advice to them? What would you tell them now that you didn't know before?
That honestly, if you state or they state that you need to do all of these classes, yeah, fight to get that stuff thrown out. But also, like, if you need to do a parent class, just go ahead and start doing it. Because if you start taking the initiative, even if you don't need that parent class, even if they throw it out, be like, hey, I'm taking it just in case. I'm doing this just in case. It does help.
Awesome. Well, great. Well, Angela, remember, so our producer who was messaging you earlier, save her number. She will get you in touch with Miss G. And I would absolutely recommend a consultation with attorney Vincent Davis. Talk about the different packages that he offers and how he can help your case.
Okay. I will definitely do that. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Angela, for joining us today. And thank you, everybody, for tuning into CPS Current Events. I will be live again on Thursday at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. That is 10 p.m. Eastern Time for Fight CPS, the Civil Rights Struggle. And thank you all again for joining. Have a great day.